Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram and Jack Lowe. Hello Andrew.
Hi Simon.
And hello Jack.
Hello.
It's good to have you here, Jack.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely. So we're going to have a good chat. I was going to say this evening. That's uncommon for us. We seem to do these shows in the daytime, but this is actually in the evening. So yeah, I feel like I should have a glass of whiskey or something like that.
You should have said.
Yeah.
I'd have lined it up.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's do what we normally do, and the first thing I want to do is to say thank you, big thanks to Clyde Butcher for being with us on the last show, which is probably now, when this goes out, be 3 weeks ago. I don't know if you're still listening, Clyde, but it was absolutely fantastic having you on. Really good show, entertaining, put us right in a few places, and nearly went to fisticuffs over microwaves, which was just great fun. So thank you for that, Clyde. Okay, so I don't know, Andrew, have you recovered from Microwave Gate?
Yeah, well, I funnily enough, I was using the microwave just. Oh, sorry, that's my squeaky chair. Let me sit still. I was using the microwave, the kitchen microwave, not a special microwave, not an old microwave, just a run-of-the-mill kitchen microwave for drying my test strips. This weekend, I was been doing some lith printing in the darkroom, and I've been stocking up on paper, so I have a stock of paper for next year when I don't have any money coming in. And I've been printing with Foamer paper, which is one of the lithable papers, and I have an older stock of Foamer paper which you can't buy anymore, and I was testing that out. But one of the first things you have to do is just get a rough idea of a normal print, so I made a little test strip on effectively 5x4 size paper, which is just torn down from bigger sheets. And because a print will look a lot different when it's dry, mainly in the highlights, I can't wait like a day for it to dry. So I just put it in the microwave, as Clyde knows. And I just use the kitchen microwave, not some special microwave.
Let it go.
So,
and then you get a base, a rough base exposure. And then you have to go back in the darkroom and expose that negative for about 3 or 4 times that time. And that's your starting point. But really, I'm using the microwave to assess my print. So I've been up to some lith printing, which has been fun. And I've got lots of little ideas for little projects on series of prints with some real meaning behind them that I want to make throughout next year. And they'll all be tiny little intimate lith prints, all of them not much bigger than a sort of contact print, 5x4 really, although they are made in the enlarger because most of them are from 6x6 negatives. So I've got things buzzing around lith printing. So I did that. And you also might have noticed I exposed my first photograph on a bit of glass as well. Now, before Jack gets too excited, these were dry plates, Jack, that I bought from Jason Lane, a previous guest on our show. And Jack, if you're not familiar with Jason, he's a fantastic guy. He's been on our podcast and he's been on Simon's other podcast a couple of times. And he's a lens designer by trade. Fascinating guy, really, really fascinating. But a few years ago, he started commercially producing dry plates for sale in all sorts of different sizes.
Really? And
he stocks them in. They're stocked in the UK now via Analog Wonderland. And I have a box of 4 or 5 in the fridge, which I haven't used yet. But what I did discover after owning a Rolleiflex for a few years, I didn't realize that you could take the back off, the door off, and then buy another door with some plate holders. And that was a revelation to me. So very cheaply on eBay, I bought a dry plate or a plate kit, which is a spare door. And then into the door, you just slide these lovely little brass plate holders, which are either plate holders or with a little insert, they become film holders. And the ones for the Rolleiflex take a 1/6 plate, which is about 6 by 8 centimeters, and Jason makes sixth plate drive plates in 25 speed and ISO 2 speed. And what's great about it is the quality control he's done all the work, basically. So I bought a box of his sixth plate, and it was 30 quid for 10 of them, which I think, being a Polaroid shooter, I think is cheap as chips, really.
It's incredible.
And I think the box of 4.5s is about 38.40, I think. But check it out, Jack, if you're not familiar with Jason Lane's.
So he's pre-coating glass plates with a photographic film for the light sensitive film.
Yes, with light sensitive emulsion.
And what was the ISO again?
ISO 2 and ISO 25.
It's very fast. Both of them are very fast.
So I was using the ISO 25 in the back of the Rolleiflex at the weekend, and I read all the blurb on these plates, Jack, and it says the ISO 25 is very, very contrasty, but you can make nice silver prints down at the low grades, which indeed turned out to be true. So I in my wife's potting shed, because I don't do gardening, I found a ball of twine and a rusty old garden thing. I don't know what it was. Don't do gardening.
You took her tools, basically. That's what you said.
Yeah, I took her tools, and with a little reflector and some diffused light through the clouds, because I thought I don't want it to be too bright and sunny. I did set up this little still life, and the first shot I made, I exposed it at ISO 25, and I was lacking in shadow detail, so I halved it to 12, and that was pretty much spot on. And he gives some guidance on developing. I just used stock ID11, which is the only developer I had, which he listed. And I could probably cut the development time down a bit. I think maybe that would help, but I still got a pretty contrasty negative. But I couldn't believe, and you'll know, Jack, how sharp and grain free it is from a glass. Yes. I was blown away. Yeah. So I want to make portraits now, not like yours, but portraits. So I'm really excited. I don't think I'm going to do enough. Sorry, I know you want to come in, but I'm so excited about glass plates. I don't want to hold your fire. I don't really want to take that extra step of starting to coat my own, because I don't think it's a rabbit hole I really want to go down, because I've got so many rabbit holes to go down. I don't think I need that one. But I like the fact that I can go and buy good quality dry plates in the UK, and to a consistent quality, and use them for just something different.
Well, that is amazing. That's amazing to know that service, that facility from Jason exists. So I had no idea.
His company is called Pictoria Graphica. But if you type in J Lane dry plates into Google, it'll come up with the Analog Wonderland store, and I think Analog Wonderland are pretty much sold out of the first batch of stuff that he had in. I think he was gauging demand, but they were stocking all different sizes: 5.7, 8.10, 6 plate, quarter plate, half plate, you name it.
12 by 10.
I don't know. But Jason, if you wanted them, Jason, you just need to talk to Jason. He does custom sizes as well.
And he's another JL.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
There's loads of us about, in photography.
So dry plates I'm very excited about. Lith printing, I've been stocking up on paper, and I've been out in the kayak. We have for the last 10 years we've been exploring the river near where I live in Cambridgeshire. We don't do anything exciting like go to sea or white water.
Kayak, don't you?
Pardon?
You know that I'm a sea kayaker.
I do know, yes. That's why I was alluding to kayaks.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but mine's we have an inflatable. It's a Seville Madison, which is £400 or £500 one, but it's got advantages and disadvantages.
Yes.
The advantages are that I can roll it up and put it in the back of the car.
I've also heard you shouldn't get it wet.
Well, I'm trying to dry it out a little bit. To put it away for a week or so, and I just wanted it as dry as possible, and Simon was taking the mickey at me when I said I didn't want to leave the kayak outside because it was going to rain, you see.
Well, what I'd really like to know is, have you put your wife's tools back where she can find them?
Yeah. She doesn't know what they are. If there's any heavy lifting or use of tools and implements, she gets me out there.
Okay.
I don't actually know what this thing. I think it was a clawed device for pulling weeds out, Joe. Yeah.
Well, just make sure it's back in its spot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so that's me really. So kayaking, lith printing, using glass plates. Have you been up to anything half as exciting, Simon, since we last spoke?
Yes, because I've actually taken photographs.
I don't believe you.
I have, and you've seen them as well. So I know you do believe me. So hot off the.
It is a lovely picture, actually.
Thank you. Well, after chatting to Clyde last time, that was the final bit of oomph I needed to get out there and actually have a go at taking some photographs. And I did two things. One, I had another go at those still life photographs that we were talking about, and using great reciprocity. And the photo I did, which I've not shared for good reason, did not work as well as I'd like it to. But after following Clyde's advice, it was certainly better than the attempt that I made before. So there's a few reasons why it probably didn't work out quite as I needed to, and that's something I'm going to be working on. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's also given me some ideas on how to take it further, because at first I was trying to make it so that the only thing that was visible was just this dead flower in a vase, whereas now I'm thinking it actually isn't such a bad idea to actually have something in the background, some form of texture, if you like, to give a bit of a background to the flower in the vase. So I'm going to carry on playing with that, and one day a masterpiece will come out. Just not saying when. But on the same day as redoing one of those, I then went downstairs, and I do all this in my dad's house. And I also took with me, because that's still life, I did it on my... the first time round I did it on the Sinar, then I did it on the Toyo, that's the correct way to say it, Toyo monorail camera. And then I wanted to... I had a couple of sheets left, and what I was shooting was FP4 Plus expired 1996. Because you know me, it was cheap, so I bought it, and that's what I'm using. And so I'd got my first time I'd actually used my MPP micropress, and I bought that camera largely because it came to me at a good price, and largely because I was struggling a little bit with my speed graphic with the shutter. It's not quite there, and so I thought, well, okay, let's give this MPP a go, this micropress. And because the shutter seemed to be working okay.
Is this also a focal plane?
It is a focal plane shutter, so it's a press camera, 1950s press camera with a focal plane shutter, and you can also use a normal lensed shutter as well, and you can use the two in conjunction with each other. But you also got to remember to make sure that if you use the lensed shutter at the front, then you've got to make sure that the focal plane shutter is open, because otherwise nothing's going to happen.
No, it's a bit like not taking your dark slide out, really.
Exactly, same principle.
Yes.
So
I'm more interested in actually knowing on the front of this camera, that's a projector lens, isn't it?
It is, and
which one is it? I can't quite read it. What's the focal length?
It's a 200mm f3.6.
Yeah.
And just to explain, it's a lights projector lens. So in other words, Leica. Lights are the people that make Leica cameras, and it's a medium format projection lens, and which we touched upon this kind of stuff with Dave Shrimpton, and he's had some weird and wonderful projection lenses he's been using, and I spotted this one for sale because these light ones are actually relatively in demand, but they're normally sold with a focusing helicoid or a sleeve, and that allows you to focus the lens. And then if you haven't got the sleeve, then those people using medium format and the smaller formats that like to adapt these things, they have a bit of a problem with that because you can't focus it. Whereas large format, we laugh in the face of helicoids and things like that because we have bellows and we can do whatever we like. And and this lenses, medium format. I don't actually know what medium format it's designed for, but certainly it's not designed for 4x5.
No, it'll be would it be from a 6x6 projector? They didn't make anything else other than those, did they? 6x6.
I have no idea what they made. So
it'd be 120. It's probably 120. I thought.
Yeah. Oh, definitely a 120 of some description. Definitely.
Does it project far into the bellows? Like, 'cause the projector lenses I've got for my Kodak carousel, they're all long buggers, you know.
Yeah, it's a long bugger. Yeah. So what I did, I made a lens board. A custom lens board for it, as in I designed and printed it to be exactly.
Is that from Forster Photographic Incorporated?
From Forster UK.
Forster.
One day I might actually start selling these things and make bespoke lens boards and things.
Yeah.
But the idea is it's friction fitted, so it's exactly the right size. So it holds it in there, but you can also pull it out if you need to.
I want you to make me one of those for my. I'll pay you, obviously. Well, it's not obvious, is it? Really, one of those for my Industar. You know, my 300mm ones, because that needs to poke out a bit further, really.
Yeah.
On my Toya.
Well, that's it. Well, that's what I did with that that 300mm 4.5 Russian lens. I had to effectively build an extension into it because the bellows won't extend far enough. But in the case of this one, 200mm is no problem on that kind of camera.
No.
So the position I put it into was just a balanced position, so it would spread its weight evenly on the front standard. Yeah. But not that it's a heavy lens. So that gives
you a little bit of extra draw as well, doesn't it? Though, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. So I got that set up, 200 3.6, so nice shallow depth of field, no aperture in it at all, with it being a projection lens. And then I went outside and said, right, Dad, you're going outside and I want to take a picture of you. And the light wasn't too bright, but it was quite bright, and I had to set it. I think the ideal exposure was probably around about, just over 1,000th of a second, which it's got a marked top speed of 1,000th of a second, which I think you can, if you did half of that, that'll be pretty good going. And an expired film, so I'm thinking, well, that's a combination that's bound to work.
Yeah.
And I've shared the picture in Facebook and Twitter and all those places.
And you've clearly got your ground glass round the right way, so that's always that's a start, isn't it, for you?
Actually, I'll tell you,
his glasses are in focus.
My bigger concern was whether or not the micropress camera used the older or the newer system for the film holders, because I think there was a change sometime in the 50s.
Was there?
For the distance away from the how it sits in there.
Oh, I see. Right.
So some of these MPP cameras, you actually need to use the MPP film holder, or you need to do some shimming and things like that. And so I thought, well, I'm going to just use some modern ones and hope for the best, and it worked. So that's good. So the actual.
Did you want us to critique it?
Yes. Tell me, there's plenty wrong with it. So and we were talking to Jack earlier, so I'll let Jack go first, I think.
Is there plenty wrong with it? I mean, is it possible to have plenty wrong with a photograph? I don't know. There are no right answers, you know. I love it. I love it as a photograph.
I do too.
The thing that's striking me the most in terms of wrong with this is it looks like it was popping out of your scanner holder.
Yeah. Now, a few things. I mean, what I've shared, and you can see this in Facebook and Twitter, and put it onto Instagram as well.
Don't get Jack started on those.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Maybe later.
Yeah. And it's just it's a unmasked shot on a light bed with a copy stand, and using a Vivitar macro lens, and I can, it looks bent. It's got
I'm feeling bad now though for picking up on that, because it's a beautiful photograph, and what I love about it is sorry to steer you away from that, is that I can come back to it if you'd like. It tells a story. I love it when a photograph tells a story in one image, and you've done that, and I think it's wonderful for that alone.
Well, thank you.
You've done it without even knowing, Simon.
Yeah, well, it's my dad's looking up at the gutter where there's a wasp nest.
You see, to the uninitiated, it looks like it might be a very pensive photograph about lockdown, and he's standing there wondering when this is all going to come to an end. Lockdown, I mean.
Yeah.
But now you're telling us he's looking at a wasp's nest.
He's planning the demise of some wasps. So that's pretty much what's going on there.
But isn't that just the beauty of it? You know, we all take away different things from an image like this, and particularly if you don't put a title underneath it. I mean, I just say Dad or something, you know. But you draw what conclusions you want from it, don't you?
He might also be thinking, I wonder if just to my right there'll be some drying marks on this piece of film.
Yes, that's the elephant in the room, really. The state of this it's not a scan as such. It's a camera scan. There's a bit of debate over what the correct terminology is to use. Let's call that a camera scan. So it's a single image that I've taken with a digital camera, and I had such low expectations for any of these shots. I developed them and then I left them in my combi plan exposed for 2 days before even looking at them, which is not the cleverest way to dry film. So
microwave, that's what you need, isn't it? A microwave.
Yes, yeah, microwave would have done a better job without a shadow of a doubt. And also, I need to get some distilled water, at least for the final rinse. Because I'm definitely having watermarks, and the other thing is on there. It's like peppered with dust, because I made no effort to do anything with it as well. So apologies all round on that one. And another thing was, the exposure. I mean, I've actually done a fair bit of work in Lightroom to bring the blacks where they are. But it was overexposed. So most of the detail I've brought back. So yeah, my shutter speed was certainly less than the 1,000 that I needed, and who knows what the sensitivity of that film is. So
we're talking about a shutter speed we're not sure of, out of date film by about 3 decades, and calcium deposits and. Sorry, is it calcium? I forgot the right chemical there. Yes. So all in all, pretty good.
Yeah. So,
did you ask him to gaze thoughtfully up at the wasp's nest, or did you just say, I'm going to look at that wasp's nest?
Well, that's the second of 2 photos. And the first one, he was looking at me. And the second one, he looked up and he goes, I'm going to do this one now. He goes, oh, you can take it like this. Okay, then. So it was my dad's idea, that was.
Well done, Dad.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Photo done, and really, really encouraged to go out and do more now. So I'm happy, and next time I will try harder. Oh, another thing, Joseph Brunges, we've mentioned twice now. That was in the pre-chat, wasn't it?
We started recording.
And he did mention some of the problems I was having with the scanning may well have been down to the fact that I had those loads of extraneous light that would have been spreading from either side of the negative when I took that shot, which would absolutely have an impact.
It makes a huge difference.
Exactly. So I should go back and do it again, but I've now decided it was an artistic impression of mine to leave the water spots and the and everything else, and that's exactly how I wanted to take it all along.
The thing is that they'll niggle you, but everyone else will think it's genius.
Not if listen to this.
Just don't put any of this in the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, we've actually been going for a while, and I've still got something else to say as well. But I'm going to, before we need to move on a bit so we can get on to you, Jack. But just one thing that, you know what, I'm not even going to say it. We'll do it next time. So that's enough about me. So Jack, what have you been up to?
Where do I start? Well, life has been very different for me, like everybody else, over the last I got used to saying a few weeks, but it's a few months now, isn't it? Since my project was paused abruptly on the 16th of March 2020. And a lot of what I've been doing is re-engineering my supertanker. And by that, I mean, I've been leaving Facebook and Instagram, basically, and deciding on new ways to, well, not new ways. I've been deciding which ways to pursue that I've been nurturing already, to keep telling the story and sharing the story of my journey. And I didn't know when I made a blog post called A Social Dilemma about 2.5 weeks ago what an impact it would have and how it would actually dominate my life for a good week or so before I was actually allowed to return to my normal thought patterns and work out how to change things. But, the phone didn't stop ringing, emails coming in, people wanted to talk about it and why I'd done it, turned my back on all those people and blah, blah, blah. So it's been quite a strange couple of weeks or so, but I love this kind of things. I really love it when I can get my teeth into something and show people what I mean.
So, I mean, there's a lot of discussions at the moment about Facebook, Twitter, and general social media, and something has driven you to move away from Facebook. So, what's the thinking behind that?
Well, the first platform I think I was driven to move away from, the first one that's been driving me nuts, is Instagram. And when I say this, I don't mean to at all. I'm really keen not to offend my diligent followers. The people who engage with me and love my posts, and we built up relationships over the years. But so I have to take that into account when I'm making decisions. But moreover, I'm really having to make decisions about running a business. It's not all about vanity. It's about best use of time and directing your energies in the right place. And for a long time now, when I say a long time, about a year, I've been keeping a closer eye on Instagram, because the one thing I've noticed more than anything is that my following seems to have been going up at quite a rate. When I decided to stop posting, I had 22.1 thousand followers on Instagram, but the engagement's been going down. Fewer likes, fewer comments. It felt like fewer people were seeing my posts, and when it boils down to it, I want people to see my posts so that ultimately they go to my website and buy things or become a patron, so that I can continue my project. Because I think we've very much come into an era where online audiences have become used to being entertained free of charge. But tragically, the work of creators can't be made free of charge. So we're in this, as a creator, as creators, we're in this awful position, actually, where we are making work at cost, both emotionally, financially, and time as well. And at great cost on all three of those elements at times. But our audiences, they've become used to being entertained free of charge. And that situation, I feel, has to change. And if we are going to put so much effort into sharing our stories and sharing our work, we need to be more careful about where we direct our energies. And when we are doing that, I think it's our duty as well to enlighten our audiences about what goes on behind the scenes and what's required to make a body of work, a project or a book or an exhibition happen. So I was keeping my eye on Instagram in particular, because that, on the face of it, is my favourite. And I think if anybody said, what's Jack's favourite platform to share his story, they'd have said I was an Instagram person, And when I had a couple of sequential buckets of cold water, because Instagram proudly told me they said, take a look at your most successful posts of the last 12 months. I thought, oh yeah, that'd be interesting. I'll go and take a look at my successful posts of the last 12 months. And I looked at the most successful one, and it was a 12-second video clip of me frying some herring. Um, I haven't actually discussed this bit of it publicly so far. I've focused on the one that's about my project. Actually, in fairness, the one about herring was about my project, but I think the one of me frying herring was, I think it reached about 120,000 accounts or something like that, or 120,000 views. So the one I've focused on, that really piqued my interest, was one of me at sea on exercise with Newcastle RNLI. That's Newcastle County Down, not Newcastle Tyne and Wear, which is where I'm speaking to you from now. But this is a video of me that I shot aboard the Tyne. I'll start that again. That I shot aboard the Newcastle lifeboat last September, and it had all the ingredients. It had sunset, sea. And it was short, it was a 20-second video clip, and it's a beautiful video clip. And I'm not sure how these features kick in and at what stage you have various features released to you, but I have a business Instagram feed, and I don't know what that really means actually, other than I feel like I'm able to see enhanced stats on posts and things like that. And I flicked up on the stats on that post, and it said that it had reached 60,000 accounts. I thought, well, that's good. And that there had been 200 profile visits. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Yes, Instagram are right. That really is a successful post. And then by sheer accident, I scrolled up again and realised there's a whole raft of other stats that Instagram could show me about each post. And I thought, and I consider myself to be an advanced Instagram user. I've been using it for years. And I hadn't seen this page before. And so it elaborated, and it told me that from those 200 profile visits and the 60,000 accounts reached, there had been one website click. And that just woke me up to even more so. If over the last year I've had a sense that Instagram has been a drain on my energies, that one moment when I saw that post, I thought, this is my second most successful post in the whole year. And I'm quite, I at least post once a day on Instagram. So my other posts, which are of wet plates and things, and I started to look back. Sure enough, profile visits, no website clicks, no website clicks, no website clicks. So I went back to my web stats on WordPress, because my site's hosted by WordPress, and I looked at it from that end too, just to confirm that. And yes, for a long time now, Instagram has been a minority player when it comes to referring traffic to my website. And the minute I started to make noises about that, other creators, other artists, photographers were mirroring that experience, saying, yes, yeah, we've had that feeling too. And then the ultimate cold bucket of water was when Donald Trump, I believe this is the second time Donald Trump's been mentioned in the podcast recently. The other moment came when Donald Trump had posted his looting and shooting tweet, and Twitter immediately flagged it. So what he did was post it on Facebook. And my understanding is that Mark Zuckerberg personally intervened to make sure that post stayed on Facebook. And then it reminded me of all the Cambridge Analytica stuff and the election influencing, and I just thought, what am I doing? If it's not driving traffic to my website, basically, if there's a numbness of engagement, if people are not engaging with my posts, they may well like them, then I need to really rethink this. And those were the two buckets of cold water that made me rethink that. There you are. That's a long answer to your question, and I can elaborate even further if you'd like to.
Well, I was going to say that's pretty deep stuff there, and I absolutely get where you're coming from there, because if you're putting that much effort into it and getting virtually zero return, and also that's been echoed by fellow artists, then you've absolutely got to question it. I mean, there's a couple of things there. I mean, there's that, and there's also the moral behaviour of Facebook and its moral conscience, and
yes,
who knows, things may be changing on that one, but that's not because Martin Zuckerberg is now becoming he's got more of a conscience all of a sudden. It's because,
well, yeah. I mean, sorry to cut across you there, Simon. I also have really strong feelings about that too, because whenever people, I know you're not necessarily defending him, but whenever you say that there are changes on that front, or people say that there are changes on that front, as it would. It feels like he always makes the right noises. And what rings in my ears is a comment he made years ago when he said, if these stupid people don't like something, just wait 6 months and we'll do it again. And so to me, that shouts loudly that he will do whatever, he will say whatever needs to be, he thinks needs to be said at the time to appease people. And then in a few months' time, he'll just do it again, because they'll be used to the idea then, you see.
Yeah.
So then he can just do what he wants to again. That is his philosophy, and those are his words. It doesn't take long to do a bit of Googling to find out the things that he said over the years about how he perceives his users. And remember, if it's free, you're the commodity. So this is a man who's one of the most powerful men in the world with that kind of attitude. If he makes the right noises in the moment, I simply am out of patience with believing those words. And just to go on a little bit further about it, you mentioned there that it's deep stuff, and what I'd implore people to do, because this is the kind of thinking that I do all the time, you see. So this is just normal thinking, as I really take everything I do, as you might have imagined or gleaned so far, really, really seriously. And I'm trying to do it to the best level I possibly can. And if people haven't thought about this before, I would really implore them to think about it, and to have a good look at why they are putting energies into something. If you're happy just to share your work, that's fine. But if you have greater motives, like trying to earn a living, which most of us do more than ever in these during lockdown and these difficult times, then I'd really implore you just to look a little bit further, think a little bit deeper, and maybe vote with your feet.
Yeah. No, I understand exactly where you're coming from there, and there is that difference between doing things like Facebook from a commercial aspect, a commercial viewpoint, and doing it as normal people, shall we say? I mean, certainly from the case of this podcast, and also the Classic Lenses podcast, we've had people very recently talking about their dismay that in the case of the Classic Lenses podcast and this podcast, we're very much Facebook based, if you like, because that's where we house
yes.
our community.
Yes.
And it's not it's clearly not a commercial enterprise, and it leads to the question: well, if we're not on Facebook, where are we? And where do we take it? Because that's one of the things that Facebook's got. It's got a lot of people, and when you have a group, I mean, and we talked about this many times on the podcast. We have a Facebook group which Andrew and I view as it's somehow different. It's not, but it's somehow different to Facebook as a whole, in that you can come into the group and you can just talk about a specific subject, and you're not bombarded with all the other things that are going on in Facebook. Yes,
but the groups are great. The community side of Facebook is fantastic when it genuinely is a community. It sounds like you have built up, and I love that when people build communities. I haven't deleted my Facebook account. I haven't deleted my Instagram account, and I'm still on Facebook just to be part of two very specific groups. Because it is a community, it feels like we really are friends who like to chat about things photographic and things kayaking. So I've just revealed that I'm on a photographic group and a kayaking group, but that really is community. But now when I post anything on those fora, I do have it very much in my mind what I'm giving away, if you like. To Facebook, because we have to remember that we are posting on a platform with dubious ethics. and dubious motives. And so really my angle, I guess, is in terms of the Lifeboat Station Project Facebook page, of posting on there where it's clearly a business, and I have built a community on there, built a great community of engagement. But that said, once I'd licked my wounds a little bit and gone back to the Facebook page to look at the comments, because I do like to reply to every comment where possible, I was saddened by the number of comments that said, "Thank you for the post. That's a real shame. We really miss you." And I thought, hang on a minute, you followed my project for 5 years. I posted thousands of times on here, telling you the story, and now the project is not relevant to you, and you don't want to see the final 3 years because it's not on Facebook. And that actually highlighted exactly one of my points. That this thing that I call the engagement numbness. The analogy I've used, I'm a great one for analogies. They just pop into my head. I don't actually know where they come from, to be honest, but they just suddenly appear. I felt like when I was nurturing the big three, when I was nurturing Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I think most people are comfortable with the fact that they're the big three social platforms. Shoot me down in flames. But I felt like the busy house husband, working away in the kitchen, preparing lovely meals for my family members and my friends, who all insisted on being in the room of their choice in the house. And I'd make these plates, these lovely meals, plate them up, put them on a tray, and diligently carry them to their room of choice in the house. And at best, I'll get a grunt from them as I handed them the tray, And what I'm essentially doing was stomping my feet and saying, "Do you know what? I've had enough of this. If you want to eat with me, we're all going to do it around the kitchen table and do it properly."
Yeah, well, there's not much that you've said that I don't disagree with, and of course you, as Simon's already said, you've got a very particular angle. That doesn't mean to say that those of us who use Facebook for non-business activities, like I do. I mean, I have a very difficult relationship with Facebook. The sentence you used a little while ago is, "If it's free, then you're the commodity." I absolutely know that.
Yes.
And it's a in my case, it's eyes wide open. And I disengage with Facebook these days and keep it so that I can engage with some fantastic friends in the large format photography Facebook group and the Lenses Podcast Facebook group. And I think, well, yeah. What do we do if we don't do that? We're not trying to run a business here. Simon and I are investing a lot of time. I invest so much time and energy into social media, into something that I love. And it's not my business, not at the moment anyway. But it's something I love. Photography, film photography. I've never owned a digital camera. Is never more than a heartbeat away from my thoughts ever. And the world that has opened up through Twitter and in particular Twitter and Facebook and more recently Instagram for me in terms of the real friends I've made. I mean, I don't just mean virtual friends, but actually physically meeting up with dozens and dozens of people.
Oh yes,
and it's been the benefits of that, and I justify it to myself. Well, I know all the stuff I'm giving away in terms of personal data and shopping habits and things I like. Suddenly you're on Facebook, aren't you? And you see an advert for something that's just on your mind. You think they're like magicians, but that's because the algorithms behind all this is so very, very clever. And suddenly they and the targeted shopping opportunities that folks have. And I kind of know that. And yet what it's given me in terms of the wider involvement in this film photography that I love and have done, since I was about 18, has been enormous. I think back to the days when all I could do really was go to the local camera club in Rayleigh in Essex once a week and enter a competition and speak to some old guys about what cameras they were using, and the level of engagement I have now and the friends I've made now through social media has been enormous.
Absolutely.
And that's the upside. But I go into it open-eyed, and I maybe not as open. I probably haven't gone into it as open-eyed as you, Jack. To be honest.
Well, I totally agree with you. You see, that's the conundrum, isn't it? Because I agree with all the things you said as well. Yeah. And I'm still on Facebook for those reasons. Because like you, I have made some friends that I would never have made had it not been for those platforms. And think of situations as well where people have come to see me working on the road. They turned up at the lifeboat station because they want to see me, and that's because they've been tracking my progress on their preferred platform, on Instagram or Facebook, and they've turned up and I've met them in person because of social media, basically. Yeah. And it is a difficult situation, but I think it depends on your how you use social media. And I think, put it this way, if you are a creator who thinks that you are using the social media platforms to drive traffic to your website and earn income,
think again.
Just have a good hard look about that. Because I've heard several times people saying, "Well, you've got to have an Instagram account because that's what you do. If you're a photographer, you have to have one." I'm just a little bit. Well, as you can tell, I'm now very wary of statements like that because I feel like, looking back at things that Mark Zuckerberg has said over the years, that's exactly what he wants us to feel. That you do Instagram, you do WhatsApp, you do Facebook, because that's what you do. I mean, imagine being somebody in charge of that. It's bliss, isn't it? It's the ideal mindset that you want for people to use your company. If it's community, and that's fine. As you said, there are issues there, but if you are a creator, putting yourself out there and trying to make your way in the world, it might be time right now to have, because there are lots of things coming out at the moment of political liaisons and dinner table meetings and all of that kind of thing, which leave a bitter taste in the mouth.
Right. Well, I think on that note, we'll move things on, because I've got to say I have several more things to say, and I think it could easily take over the entire podcast. But it's I think you've opened many people's eyes there, and you've come out with a few things there that I was unaware of as well. So it certainly should give us pause for thought. But I'm going to head over to Andrew now, because I think it's about time that Andrew gave you a proper introduction and we talk about why we've got you on the podcast in the first place. So here you go, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Well, Jack, it's lovely to have you here. I think I first became aware of what you were doing with the Lifeboat project. I don't know, 2017, somewhere around there. In fact, I know it was 2017. In fact, I also know, how well prepared am I, that it was issue 202 of Black and White Photography magazine. Actually, I only know that because you told me. And that was when I first saw your work. And it was at that point, I didn't own a large format camera, probably shooting medium format at most. Well, I was shooting medium format. Wet plate work, vaguely aware of it. And this idea of you traipsing around the country with the idea of photographing pretty much every lifeboat station, the people involved, the setup, and how it's grown since then as well.
Yes.
And so it's a real pleasure to have you here and to perhaps tell us a little bit more about that. It's probably a well-trodden story for you as to how you started, but many people listening here today won't know that story. So maybe, Jack, you can just, in the time-honoured fashion, just explain a little bit about how you got into this project and why large format.
Right, yes. Well, thank you very much both for having me and for inviting me to chat to you about at length about lots of things.
About Facebook.
Yes. And yes, you're right. The path is well trodden in terms of the story about how I started this. But by the same token, as anybody who knows me will tell you, I'm very happy to talk about it because I'm the only person really who can tell that story, and I know that's how the word gets out there and people find out about it. So yes, when you had discovered the journey, the project in 2017, I was already 2.5 years, nearly 3 years into the journey. I started, my first lifeboat station was on the 12th of January 2015. And I first conceived the idea in 2012. So that's how long it's been in my life now. So nearly 8 years as an idea. It's October 2012 that I first had that light bulb moment. And it was born out of a lifetime, my life so far in photography. I got into photography when I was 8 years old when my grandmother gave me my first camera, which was a Kodak Instamatic, classic humble item. And fast forward to around about 2010, 2011, 2012, I was in the middle of a different chapter in my photographic life of being a printmaker, a digital printmaker and retoucher for other photographers. And I landed in that by accident, really, around 2000, at the turn of the century, when digital imaging was new and people were struggling to find their way with it. And I just found that my mindset just could see, it's a bit like the Matrix, I could just see it all and understand how it all worked. And I could just do it. And people wanted those services from me. So I became a retoucher and printmaker for a good 12, 13, 14 years in the end. If you include the overlap, there's a little bit of overlap with the project. When I say the project, I mean the lifeboat station project. But that had taken me into a life of sitting in front of a computer, as a retoucher and printmaker. And we all know, I'm sure, that when you sit in front of a computer, time becomes of no consequence. 1 hour becomes 1 minute, and before you know it, you're in the small hours of the night, working away on something. And I just started thinking, what has happened here? Because I used to be an adventurer. I used to shoot film. I used to make my own photographs. Where's my own photography gone? And when I come up against that kind of a point in my life, I'm not somebody to keep ploughing that furrow. I'm somebody who will make a change. I'll change the formula to get different results. And I knew at that time that if I was going to change what I was doing and get back into my own photography, that I would have to do something special. And that's how I set about the path of thinking about that. And it took me 2 years to think about what that special thing would be, until that light bulb moment came along in 2012. And it came about from following my own advice, really, which is something I've always told people, which is, I dare you to write down your dream in one paragraph or one sentence on a piece of paper. And it can be one of the bravest things that somebody will ever do, because when you do that, you're usually owning up to the fact that what you're doing at the moment isn't good enough. And in the end, when I was struggling to think what that idea might be, I looked back to my childhood passions. I started to think about what I enjoyed as a kid. And of course, that's photography. When I was 12, I converted my bedroom into a darkroom and taught myself how to process film and print from the negatives. And I liked Lego, and I liked model railways and all the classic childhood stuff. But the things that kept coming back to me were photography, lifeboats, and the sea. And I actually wrote those 3 words down on a piece of paper. And the next light bulb moment came when I looked up from a cup of tea at the famous RNLI tea towel with the map on it of all the lifeboat stations. It's been on our kitchen wall for a long time. And I just thought, that's it. I wonder if anybody's ever been to all of the RNLI lifeboat stations and made a body of work of all those lifeboat stations. And a quick bit of research revealed that they hadn't. And I felt in those moments that it was a gift, because one of the things we all look for these days is the simple idea, isn't it? And there was my simple idea. The simple idea is the best ones, and it really felt like a gift in those moments. And so that was in October 2012. And so then in the next 2 years were about working out how I might do that. At first it was a digital photography idea, and I was just going to photograph the view from every lifeboat station, which seems ridiculous now. And in hindsight, I think I was looking for an easy ticket.
You'd have just ended up with loads of pictures of the sea, wouldn't you? Is that what you mean? Pointing out?
Yes, that's right. But the idea, but it's still a good idea, though, in that when you then put all those photographs geographically correctly around an exhibition space and stand in the middle, the sensation is that you're looking around the entire coastline of the UK and Ireland. So that's something I still do now as part of the lifeboat station project. That's as part of the core of the project. So I did continue with that, But the other thing was too, of course, that if I'd done it digitally, I could have just photographed about 10 lifeboat stations a day, and it would be over in a couple of months. And I needed to try harder. I needed to think harder. And then I saw a film called Silver and Light by a guy called Ian Rutter. Have you seen that by any chance?
I don't think so.
He's a guy in the States, and this might jog people's memories, who bought an old delivery van, I think it was an old UPS van, and turned it into a camera. So he's a wet plate photographer. And the plates he makes are so large that the vehicle itself is the camera. And he puts a huge lens in the back of where the doors, he opens the doors and replaces that space with the lens. And when I saw him working, I thought, that's it. And then I thought back to those feelings that I loved as a child when I processed my film and made my prints. That classic thing that so many photographers talk about, or people who've dabbled in photography will always remember for the rest of their days, that the magic of an image appearing. And I thought, that's what I need to do again. I need to make photographs and make physical objects, and something that people can engage with. And furthermore, if they're seeing me making that work, that'll mean that I need to make it while I'm on the road. And I don't want it to be a two-stage process. I don't want to be shooting something on film perhaps and then taking it away and making the prints later. I want whoever's with me to be able to see it happening. And when you go down that road, that takes you back to 1851. To working with wet collodion and making direct positives on, as I am, on glass, but you can make them on metal as well, and they're known as tin types. But I'm making amber types, which are wet collodion photographs on glass. And with regard to the format, which is 12 by 10 inches that I use, all of my glass plates are 12 by 10 inches, so that in itself it's become a signature. I wanted a size that was workable, because there'd be extraordinary logistics involved in carrying all the glass I needed on one trip and all the chemicals to process it. So the plates couldn't be too large because they'd be impossible to carry. But it also needed to be impressive as an item to see, so that when people saw the glass plate, it's almost the size of an album cover, bar the 2 inches in height. And that's why I chose 12 by 10 inches as my format. So there you go. Another long answer.
So, first of all, when you were writing your dream on a piece of paper, one of the things you mentioned was the sea. Is that because you always had an affinity to the sea? Are you brought up by the coast, or what's the deal with the sea for you?
Yeah, well, several things really. I grew up on a boat for the first few years of my life.
Oh, did you? Inland, river or sea? Or
combination. At first at Teddington on the River Thames, and then I'm told it was the hot summer of 1976, and so the Thames kept drying out at low tide, which meant the boat kept resting on the bottom. So she was moved round to Ramsgate Harbour and lived on her there. But I was born in Aberdeen because my dad was a deep sea diver on the North Sea oil rigs. And he was also in the Merchant Navy, he remains to this day a mariner. He lives in New Zealand now, but has a beautiful old wooden boat again. Yes, and so this boat that I grew up on, and that was in the family for so many years. She was a 100-foot Victorian schooner. So Victorian technology has been in my Victorian surroundings have been in my life for a long time. Yes, so that's why the sea came about, and then all through my teenage years, I was a kayaker, and as I am now, but I used to sail wayfarers as well, and occasionally sail bigger boats as well. So yes, it's been in my life a lot.
And did you, when you conceived of this project, when you looked at that, when you had your tea towel moment,
yes,
were you already shooting large format and making wet collodion, or did you think, I need to go and do this, I need to make it really hard? How hard can I make it? I'm going to go and buy a big camera. I mean, was all that stuff on your? I mean, you were into photography, clearly, so you had a sense of this old technology. But were you actually making wet plates before you started before you had the tea towel moment?
I started learning once I need to rewind the clock a little bit here, actually, because in October 2012, I proposed the idea to the RNLI because I knew that if I was going to make this work, I'd need their blessing to do it. I'd be on their property, so I wanted their blessing. And I wanted them to be behind it so they could help me share the story as well if they thought it was a great idea. But remember, it's just the boathouse views, and it was a digital idea at that time. And they turned me down at the time because they said that they were working on something similar. So I was gutted, for want of a better word, at the time. I thought my simple idea had been crushed. But then they published the book of this similar idea, and it wasn't similar at all. It was a good book and a great body of work by Nigel Millard. It is a book called Courage on Our Coasts, which is still to this to this day a great reference of lifeboat life, RNLI life. So I had to go away and hone and refine that idea, and with my tail between my legs a little bit, because I thought I'd landed on that magical moment. So nevertheless, I still knew I wanted to make photographs. And that Ian Rutter video then inspired me to start on the path of wet plate collodion. But I started shooting on. It's called cabinet size. It's also known as European half plate. It's a bit bigger than postcard size. It's 6.5 inches by 4 3/4 inches. So I started learning with that, with a kind of portable darkroom that I cobbled together from a box. Because in case you're not aware, with wet collodion, you have to have darkroom facilities to hand. So when you're ready to make a photograph, you're hand making your photographic film in those moments, and having to start and complete the whole process within about a 10-minute window, 15-minute window. So I was learning it then, and I started posting the portraits I was making on the social channels at the time that I was using. So that was Instagram, and I had a Facebook page then, but also my blog. And the reaction I got was extraordinary. Better than anything I'd ever shot as a photographer up until that point. And then that was the other penny dropping. I thought, hang on a minute, that idea on the back burner that I've been honing and refining, the Lifeboat Station project, this is the magical ingredient for that. What would I need to do to take this on the road and to make this really happen? And when those final bits of it all came together, bit by bit, I then thought, you know what? I'm just going to repropose this idea to the RNLI. And also, I realised I'd been silly in hindsight, because how could I go and photograph the RNLI, an organisation of folk, an organisation of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and not photograph the people? So when I reproposed the idea, I not only had this element of wet collodion in the mix, but also photographing the crews and the coxswain at each lifeboat station. And when they saw that email come through, it was the same woman read it, and she said, "Oh yes, I remember you." She said, "This looks really good now. You can come down for a meeting." So that's what I did. And one of the things that seems really ballsy in hindsight as well, it's really interesting. This lockdown has given me lots of time now, for the first time in over 5 years, to reflect properly on the journey so far and the things that have happened. When I knew there might be a meeting afoot, or I wanted to repropose this idea, I spoke to somebody at the BBC, and essentially told them I was going to do it. That I'll be doing this thing. But in my head, what I really wanted to do was see if I could get some press coverage to take to the RNLI for that meeting, to show how powerful it would be. And yeah, they were really into it. And they filmed this lovely piece at Craster in Northumberland, and it aired on television on Look North, BBC Look North, back in 2014. So then I had this wonderful BBC press piece to take down to the meeting, and say, "Here you are, look, this is what a glass plate looks like. This is the idea now. This is the kind of press coverage it can generate." And so I walked out of that meeting with the blessing of the charity that I've loved since childhood. That was the other factor, by the way, about lifeboats. I've been a junior member of the RNLI since I was 10 years old. I've been into lifeboats as well since I was.
And I bet the thing that got you into lifeboats were those wonderful boxes that took pennies or 2 pences or farthings, where you put your coin in and the lifeboat shot down the ramp. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, of course I do. Yes. Yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in years. I've just forgotten that. They were a thing, weren't they? I'm not making that up.
No, they absolutely were. And if you go to Heritage, hallowed Heritage Room in the RNLI's headquarters in Poole, you have that they keep examples. They keep the best examples of all those things. So that there's a section in there that are the coin collectors, the money tins, and yeah, I mean that kind of thing taps right into what ticks lots of boxes for a child, doesn't it? And
yes.
As I always say to people now as well, if you think Thunderbirds doesn't exist, think again, because all you need to do is go to RNLI lifeboat stations and stand at the top of a slipway and watch a lifeboat career into the water, a 32-ton lifeboat career into the water and take off at high speed. I mean, that's real life Thunderbirds right there. It's all those things that got me into it as a child. And actually, there was one defining thing that really got me into it as well, which was watching the Yarmouth lifeboat. Yarmouth on the Isle of Wight is an Arran class. It's a beautiful, big all-weather lifeboat. Go to the Needles Lighthouse, where the lighthouse keepers were waiting for their arrival at Christmas time. And when the water was too choppy, they would, by Breach's Buoy, send the Christmas tree and the Christmas supplies from the foredeck of the lifeboat over to the lighthouse keepers. And I just thought that was phenomenal.
And the Breach's Buoy is where they shoot a line to something, and then someone shimmies along it on a sort of seat thing.
Yes, that's right. So you can either put a person in it or you can put items in it. And so they sent the Christmas tree across that would dip into the sea on its way across, because if it was calm weather, they would put the bow of the lifeboat right up to the lighthouse and they just hand them over. But if there's any kind of swell, they'd have to do it by Breach's Buoy, and I just thought it looked phenomenal, and that was me hooked.
I can the idea of lighthouses, lifeboats, the whole thing, as for a small boy, is so engaging. I remember, I think I had a similar engagement as a kid, but it didn't lead to clearly your project, but through Blue Peter, because they were constantly sponsoring lifeboats. I don't know if you.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if you recall that, but they and there would often be, as they launched a new lifeboat, there would every few years when they did a new one, there would be a piece on Blue Peter and the life of the lifeboatmen and the things they got up to was right there for kids to see. Yeah, in a way, it probably isn't there.
No, well, it is, because there are still active lifeboats that are Blue Peter lifeboats.
Are they?
Yes, because they've done it until quite recently.
Okay.
I was in Portaferry in Northern Ireland in September, and their lifeboat there is a Blue Peter lifeboat, state of the art Atlantic 85 lifeboat. Blue Peter, I can't remember the number. Oh, if they're listening, I think it's Blue Peter 4, Blue Peter 5.
Right.
Yeah. So there are active Blue Peter lifeboats around the coast still now. Incredible.
And it's such a selfless, heroic thing, and people who live in those communities have got a real engagement with the sea. Often fishermen, aren't they? And people who want to just who are at one with the sea and know the dangers of it. I remember visiting Sheringham, I think it probably was on
Norfolk.
Yeah, and there's a lifeboat museum now. I don't know if it's still going, but they had a very old lifeboat there with that the guys would just row.
That's right.
And boy, that must have been treacherous. I mean, now you can go in a lifeboat and the thing they turn upside down, don't they, and bob up the right way. And
hopefully not too often.
Yeah. No.
Yes, I think those days are dwindling, where people are seafarers through generations. Working life has changed. So many people work out of town now, or offshore on wind turbine farms or oil rigs or supply vessels. Those days, those romantic days, are rare now, where everyone's working within the town and they run or cycle to the lifeboat station. But those places do still exist, and quite often, the RLI prides itself in its training. So they do encourage people that if you just have the right ethos and the right approach, come and join us, because we'll train you. And they have world-class training facilities and training strategies that do mean that people are more than fit to go to sea on these state-of-the-art vessels.
When you first started the project, and on the very first time you tell us about that very first day when you turned up at your first lifeboat hut, shed, station. That's it.
Lifeboat station, yes.
Lifeboat station. And how did that all work? And, were you nervous? What reaction did you get? And, what did you learn?
Yeah. Well, I laugh about it now with my friend, Hen. It's short for Henderson. He's called Ian Henderson, and he's known to his loved ones as Hen, or Geordie. He was with me that day, and came along for moral and emotional support and to help me out.
Was he just a mate? Was he a mate from where you lived then?
Yes, yeah, I've known him for well over 20 years now.
Okay.
And my first lifeboat station was Southwold in Suffolk, so on the East Anglian coast there.
Yep.
So we had a long drive from Newcastle on the 11th of January 2015. As you can tell, these dates and instances get embedded in my psyche. In the morning, we drove from the B&B down to the lifeboat station. And of course, remember, these things are all planned. I can't just turn up at a lifeboat station and expect people just to come down and see me. I plan these things 3 or 4 weeks ahead. And the weather was awful. It was absolutely, it was a January morning, and the forecast was horrendous. And Hen said to me, as we pulled up in my mobile darkroom, which you can come to in a bit if you'd like to as well, he said, "Well, this is exciting, isn't it?" And I just turned to him and said, "Well, for you maybe, but I'm nervous as hell."
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, why?" I said, "Well, I've been talking about this project for over 2 years, and I've been talking the talk and getting it in the press, getting it on the BBC, talking about it, building up some anticipation on social media, and now I've got to do it, Hen. Now I've got to open this door into this howling gale and work with one of the most inconvenient photographic processes known to man, and do it." And he said, "Oh yeah, good point." So I was nervous as hell, but you've got to take the leap, haven't you? That's part of what makes it so great, actually, that it isn't straightforward. Of course, it's become more straightforward and very much in my routines after some 2,000 glass plates and 150 lifeboat stations now. But that first day was nerve-wracking. But, I'm still in touch now with those very first people I met that day. And at the subsequent, I photographed 8 lifeboat stations on that trip. So I was on the road for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And I'm still in touch with most of them now, well over 5 years later. There's barely a month goes by when I don't speak to the Lowestoft coxswain, for example. He was the next station along on that particular
Is there
trip.
one in Great Yarmouth now? I can't honestly remember.
Great Yarmouth and Galston.
Yeah.
That's the lifeboat there.
It's on the Galston side, isn't it,
Yes,
the river?
That's right, yeah.
It's my hometown, Great Yarmouth. So
there we are. Yep. So that's the third station on my... That was the third station on my project.
So where did you go from there? Did you go up round towards Haysborough that way?
Yes, that's right. So Southwold was the first, but then the dates with Haysborough and Lowestoft with Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft had to be swapped around. So that's always been confusing from the outset because I photographed Lowestoft and then I photographed Great Yarmouth. In fact, is that right? I'm now confusing myself. I can't remember which way around I did it. But yes, moved my way up through Cromer and Haysborough and Sheringham.
Cromer launches off the end of the pier, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And again, that was childhood dream, pinch yourself stuff, because when I used to read Stormforce, which is the magazine for the junior membership of the RLI, and the club that I was in as a child, they'd often feature Cromer because it's home to the most famous lifeboatman, the most decorated lifeboatman, Henry Blogg.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, well, there you are. So that was part of my strategy, you see, was to limber up to Cromer on the way up to get used to the routines and then hopefully get some press interest at Cromer, a famous lifeboat station. And that worked a treat. It ended up being in all the local papers and on television. And then that particular journey ended in Hunstanton on that very Norfolk coast there.
My wife is from King's Lynn, so there we go. Sorry, Simon.
Yeah, Jack, you mentioned to set one of these events up. I think it's probably a better way of calling it. You plan it from around about 2 weeks in advance, and I guess it'll be even more with.
It's a bit longer now, yes.
Yeah, I mean, what goes into that? I mean, what is the typical? Right, this is where I want to go. How do I make that? This is what I need to do to make it happen, and turn up and work out what you need to take, and so on. So, what are the logistics in an event? So, you're going to go somewhere in a few weeks' time. How do you make that happen?
Yeah, so whenever I leave Newcastle to go, I call them missions, and each of the missions have numbers, and people have ribbed me in the past. They think, why do you call it a mission? That's a bit theatrical, isn't it? And then they come along and see me working, and they say, "Oh, I see why you call it a mission now." So I need to decide on my missions. So the last one was Mission 20, the one that was curtailed by COVID-19. I need to decide how many stations I think I can fit in a run, and how long that means I'll be on the road for. So that is usually these days about 10 to a dozen lifeboat stations, which means that I'm on the road for about 5 weeks solid, making new work. So I then have to start contacting those lifeboat stations. I need to find out who's the person that's best to liaise with at that lifeboat station, and they will receive an email. I have a private page on my website that outlines what to expect on the day and considerations to take into account. I have to, what's the word? Make people aware. A lot of the work starts right in that early contact. I have to make people aware that I'm not just going to be 5 minutes making a photograph. I'm going to need, in each scenario, like the crew photograph or the portrait of the coxswain, I need to allow about an hour for each photograph, for each scenario. The truth of it is, it'll take me about 40 to 45 minutes if things have gone well. But by the time you've spoken to people and said hello and had a bit of a chat or a cup of tea, it's going to be a good hour. So I need to make sure that everyone's aware of that. So part of the skill, if you like, is before you've even hit the road, before you've even touched the camera, before you've even ordered the chemicals, is to make sure that people are aware of what to expect. And of course, as the years have gone by, it's gone much more in my favour now because everyone's anticipating me. They want me to come along, and they feel like they've followed it for years, and they're looking forward to it. So I need to send an email to the stations, and then hear back from them that my proposed date suits them. And I've learned all sorts of nuances within that. What's the best day to photograph an all-weather lifeboat station? What's the best day of the week to photograph an inshore lifeboat station? There are two different types of lifeboat station, you see. All-weather lifeboat stations are where they have full-timers. So there's a full-time coxswain and or mechanic looking after the big famous lifeboats, the ones with the orange wheelhouses, and they're the ones that will go out into anything. And they're the inshore lifeboats, which are completely volunteer-based. So it's best to photograph those usually at the weekend, you see. So all kinds of nuances that you pick up along the way. And then gradually the responses come in. And usually, I have to say, they agree to the date. And that's all down to me having an awareness of what will suit them. It's my job not to be the big I am, but to start from zero every time. And I know that I need to fit into their community and start as a zero at ground level every single time and work my way into that community, because it doesn't matter how successful the project is or what's gone before. The fact is that each of those communities has sometimes been built up over generations, some of them nearly 200 years old. And in that context, I'm nothing. So I need to tread lightly, shall we say. I need to go in carefully each and every time to make sure that we get the best result for everybody. Because the project isn't just about me, it's about them too. It's a legacy for both of us. It's a legacy for me, because I now consider myself to be making my life's work, but it's a legacy for them because it's a body of work about it's shining a light on the greatness of these people. And so once the dates are then confirmed, that's fantastic. And I start going ahead with it once the first dates come in, because once the first dates come in, you can build on something there. And then I need to start preparing the glass. So I need to, my framer, he kindly cuts all the glass for me, all the 12 by 10 sheets. So the actual making of the photograph starts sometimes weeks before I've even got the camera in front of the people, because I have to think ahead at every single level. And then in terms of quantities of glass, I can't just turn up with a memory card and know that I can make 1,000 captures. I have to really think, right, how many photographs do I think I'll make at that station? And on average, I rarely shoot more than 10 plates at each station. So I need to take that into account. So can you see that as it's building up now, we're talking about potentially 12 lifeboat stations. That means 120 sheets of glass that I need to carry in my vehicle safely. And the further I travel along each mission, the more precious the cargo gets, because those plain pieces of glass are gradually transformed into one-off photographs. So everything needs to be safely stowed at every single stage. And I also need to order my chemicals weeks in advance, because they can't buy those off the shelf either. I have a friend who mixes those for me. He's a chemist, very clever chemist, who can make them really consistently and brilliantly for me. So I start to prime him about 6 weeks ahead. So I need to carry enough chemicals to make and develop and fix 120 glass plates, and that's just one mission. I've been to 150 lifeboat stations now, and there are 238 in total. And what we're talking about here is just one of those trips, and I've been on the road 20 times now, over 5 years.
Well, I'm sure people are listening to this and thinking, and this is the question that they've been waiting to hear, I guess, from that. And the first one would be a bit of news. You're not the son of a billionaire. So, and the RNLI aren't paying you for this. So how was this project funded?
Well, there's another topic. There's another topic. Goodness me. What you can't see now is I've got my head in my hands. Because one of my strengths or flaws, depending on which way you look at it, because it depends whether or not you're my wife, is that once I've decided I'm going to do something, put it this way, she would say that I'm somebody who makes my mania work for me. You know, I'm obsessive. When I had a good idea and I know it's going to be brilliant, I just throw myself into it wholeheartedly. So my point here is that I turned my back on that printmaking business almost overnight. You know, like say within a few months. I'm saying overnight, but people soon got the impression that I wouldn't be printmaking for much longer because I had this great idea, and my intention was to go away and make beautiful work, and I'd sell enough prints from that work, you know, edition prints from the glass plates that I'd make digitally because I've, you know, harnessing all those skills from the previous 12 years, and I'd sell enough prints, and it would just work out somehow. It would just work out. Now, if you took that idea into Dragon's Den or something similar, you'd be laughed out of the building, wouldn't you? But this is the life of an artist, isn't it? The life of a creator. This is sometimes how we think, and we can take big risks. And it was a big risk, but it's something that I believed in. And again, in hindsight, I had that purist notion that that's how it would work. And it kind of worked. And I'm proud, so proud, actually, that I did sell enough prints and consistently sell enough prints to fund the costs of the project. So I sell a lot of limited edition prints, but they are they fund the expenses of the project. So the materials, the accommodation, the fuel in my vehicle, the repair costs of my vehicle, all that sort of thing. And what I couldn't make work for those first 2 or 3 years was the living side. And it got worse and worse and worse until I had the most extraordinary financial stresses. And I'm talking about, you know, whenever I say this, you know, there are some details that I might write about in a book one day, but, you know, just to skim over the top of it for the moment, I'm talking about eviction notices, you know, for our family home, which I've fought off and come up with the money just in time to keep our family home, for example. So extraordinary stress for my family and me, but I still had this skill of compartmentalizing that stress. So when I was at a lifeboat station, I could put all that aside and just make good art. You know, there's a video by Neil Gaiman, the author, that's inspired me. It keeps inspiring me, that I first saw again in 2012. You know, as we come back to this, I think as I speak more about this journey now, I'm realizing that 2012 was a crux moment in my life of inspiration and a tipping point. Look it up on YouTube. Neil Gaiman commencement speech, where he talks about what to do as an artist, and how to set your goals, and how to just keep going. And I think if you haven't seen it before, and if you're listening to this, it'll be an inspiring moment for you too, and something to keep referring back to. You know, I look at it once a year now or so and look back at it and I think, oh right, I understand that bit of what he says there now. You know, I think I thought I understood it all, this 20-minute speech, but it's only all these years down the line that I truly now understand what he's saying, that sometimes you do have to just take that leap, and whatever happens, whoever's on your back, or whoever's telling you you're wrong, or whoever's telling you that you can't do that, just keep the faith and keep making the work, keep making good art. And you know what? In the end, it'll come good, and you'll find the way of making it that works. You might have some scary moments along the way, which I really have, but I've thought all the way through that journey, I've always had hope. And if I have got hope, I can function. And one thing that I've always been aware that people can't take away from me is the story and the quality of the work that I was making during those stressful times, and I continue to make now. You know, it's been quite an extraordinary journey in many ways. You know, people always think about the photographs, but there are extraordinary layers to it beyond that make the photographs and the audio recordings that I make as well all the more special for me, and all the more special for the people who know about all those details and who support me in continuing the project.
So you had a means of escaping. I don't want to dwell on this stressful time for you too long, but I mean, it clearly helps to shape who you are, these sort of experiences. But you said you had the mental capacity to compartmentalize. That's the word I struggle with. That.
Yes, yeah.
But what about your family members? I mean, they must be. You must have tremendous support.
Yes.
And belief in you.
Yes. I drive them nuts as well. My wife has
still married to you?
Yes, yeah. we just celebrated another anniversary actually, and
excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. She knows what I'm like, and it's always been down to me to come up with the ideas, if you like. And just to put that into a bit of context, she had a stroke in 2010, so she's unable to work full time these days. So it really is on me to come up with the ideas. So she trusts me implicitly, and the one thing she has always known is that even through stressful times, I have come through it and I've made it good. And that's exactly what's happened with the Lifeboat Station project. The moment I worked out how to fund it properly, which it took me 3 years, I was 3 years into the journey when that happened, when I discovered Patron, basically, and found a way to let my supporters support me.
So sorry to just step in there, but you mentioned a little while ago, you very quickly kind of covered the costs, if you want.
Yes.
To put it that way, but the thing you struggled with was clearly paying the mortgage and feeding your wife. That's really,
right. And my children. Yes.
Yes, and so was it the discovery of things like Patreon, and was that the game changer for you?
Yes, absolutely. It was several things. So this now we're into 2017, just about when you discovered the project, Andrew. And I reached my 100th lifeboat station, which was Valencia, on the southwest corner of Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, so in County Kerry. And the RNLI were really chuffed for me, the station were really chuffed for me, and they made this beautiful plaque from Valencia slate, which is the slate that's on the roof of the House of Commons, apparently, and on St Paul's Cathedral as well. And they made a plaque for me saying Jack Lowe 100th lifeboat station of the Lifeboat Station project and the date on it and all that kind of thing. Incredible. But all the while I was compartmentalising this stress. And the RNLI asked me to do a piece to camera from Valencia, to say, thank you for following, how grateful I am to the people who supported the project. And I just couldn't do this piece to camera. My friend was filming it, and I was on about take 11, take 12, take 13, and I just kept stumbling on my words, because I'd made the photographs, I'd done the do, and I had to do this one more thing, and this one more thing of doing this piece to camera was just too much. And I sent a clip to friends and family saying, look at this, isn't this funny? And it's of me not being able to get my words out. And the messages started to come back. They're saying, no, Jack, that's not actually very funny. That's very distressing, actually. You look like you're ill. You look like you're on the edge of something. And actually, looking at that clip made me cry, came the reply back several times from several people. And that woke me up, and I thought, oh, dear, this is, this is no good. This is unsustainable. So 3 years in, 100 lifeboat stations, I'd already achieved such a lot, but I was on the verge of something there that I guess you could call a breakdown or burnout or whatever. And my loved ones and the RNLI were imploring me to find it. How was I going to carry on? And we came to the decision that the best thing to do would be to post that clip online and show people that beyond the glossy facade of social media, in fairness, that's a world that I'd created, that I'd actually hadn't shown people how hard it was. And this is how hard it was. And so I posted it in a blog post called Mission Fatigue that people can find on the website. So if you go to lifeboatstationproject.com mission dash fatigue, you'll find that blog post and that clip, that very clip that I'm talking about, the one that I sent to all my friends because I thought it was funny. And you'll see now when you look at it, that 20-second clip is quite distressing, and that woke people up. It turned out to be the most positive thing I'd done on the whole journey in terms of funding it and making it work. And a friend got in touch and he said, I know you don't like Kickstarter. That's purely because I don't think Kickstarter suits the project. I think the project is too big for Kickstarter. This kind of all or nothing scenario. He said, but have you heard of Patreon? He said, I don't. I've been meaning to tell you about it for a while, but I just thought you wouldn't like it. And I said, no, I haven't heard of Patreon. What is it? He said, well, it's a crowdfunding platform that enables your followers, your supporters, to pay a monthly amount. I said, well, that sounds perfect. And as I was on the phone to him, I looked up patreon.com and saw the scenario. I thought, this is it. And at the same time, a book landed in my lap. It's funny, isn't it, how these things arrive with you at the right time. By Amanda Palmer, who coincidentally is Neil Gaiman's wife. So remember the inspirational video I'd seen in 2012, and now this book by his wife, Amanda Palmer, lands in my lap, and it's called The Art of Asking. And again, another book I'd recommend. Amanda Palmer's quite a Marmite person. I think she'd say that herself. Have you heard of her?
No, but I'm making diligent notes.
Yeah, she's a musician and creator. And she has 15, when I last looked, over 15,000 patrons on Patreon. So that's to be clear, that's 15,000 people who are paying a monthly amount of money to her to enable her to make her work. She wrote a book called The Art of Asking, which I learned an awful lot from as well, not least to learn how to ask people for help and not be ashamed to ask people for help. And furthermore, to create ways to let your audience support you, not to tell them to support you, to let them support you. And when you start creating those mechanisms of that allow people to support you, to show them the path, it's amazing what comes your way. And within a week, I had within just 48 hours or so, I suddenly had an extra £200 or £300 a month coming in from patrons, and then I think within a month I was up to £1,000 a month, something like that. And suddenly, when you're into those realms, that's the tipping point, isn't it? That's the bit that starts to pay the domestic bills. That's the bit that starts to put food on the table after you covered the costs of the work you're trying to make. And what I was then learning, and you've been on this enormous curve and found myself being a voice for it, which I really enjoy as well, is how to enlighten my audience. People have... You can imagine the kind of responses you get when you put something behind a paywall, like a fantastic audio recording that you're saying is great on Twitter and Facebook, and you say to your audience, okay, and to hear it, you'll just need to pay £1 a month or more to hear it. And I had one comment that said, "It's a con making us pay for it," and I reminded that person. Because I thought, because she's written that publicly and they've got so many followers, whenever you're writing to people, you need to reply to these things, I think, because you're not just replying to that person, you're replying to everyone else who will read that comment and think, oh yeah, it is a con. You need to state your case. And that's when I first really sharpened up my language with it, I guess, and what I thought about it. And that's when I first started using this language of being entertained free of charge. And I said to her, I'm very glad that you got used to being entertained free of charge, but tragically, the work cannot be made free of charge. And for example, I made that audio recording in Ireland, and I didn't see you standing beside me at the ferry terminal to pay the £400 bill to get my vehicle from the UK mainland to the Republic of Ireland so I could make that audio recording. And she became a patron.
Yeah.
And so I look at these things as opportunities. It'd be very easy to get cross. And I was cross. I was upset. It's like a dagger through the heart. I think anybody who works online and is fueled by affirmation, which I think many creators are, affirmation is certainly a large part of my oxygen. These things are a dagger through the heart because you want to shout at somebody and say, how dare you? Look back through the 3,000 posts and tell me how much that's cost you.
Yeah.
To read those. And the other thing, the other opinion I have here too is that if somebody has got the means to own a device and pay the tariff for an internet connection to see the content, why can't they make the extra leap to support the content that they're enjoying on it? People have their pigeonholes for money, of course they do. But on Patreon, I ask for people to pledge whatever they're comfortable with, starting from £1 a month. And most people pay about £3, £5 a month, something like that. And and then I have people at the other extreme who are paying more than that, and it's fantastic. So I see my life, my creative life, not just as a duty to make great work and make good art, but to enlighten audiences, to pull the industry, to pull the creative arts out of this rut that it's got into on social media. And social media is to blame here
free.
Of everything being for free. That has to change, but change in a positive way, not being angry at people, but enlightening people. And whenever I speak to my peers who are struggling to find their way in getting the message out there or earning a living, I'm sure they'll tell you that I'm not shy about telling them this exact message that I've been telling you here this evening, that it's our duty as creators to swing this around. And now I'm delighted to see on the social platforms the language of Patreon and patronage, which is a very old notion, by the way. Patronage is centuries old. But much of the famous art that we see in galleries couldn't have been made without patrons.
No,
that's the way
very rich benefactors that supported artists because they loved it so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But suddenly, isn't it fantastic that this word is now back in people's language? People are actually getting it because they're finding that there are fewer places to turn to get free work because more and more people are thinking, yes, I need to swing this around and turn the tide. I'm just entering into a sentence there of saying turn the tide to keep art alive. And I wrote a blog post after Mission Fatigue. That was the next milestone blog post that I wrote. It's called Turning the Tide to Keep Art Alive. And that's the most popular thing I've ever written because artists and audiences use it as a resource to refer to. I'm regularly seeing tweets about it or traffic through it as people discover it. Hopefully your listeners will find that a useful resource as well to encapsulate everything that I've been talking about here. But I wrote that in March 2018. So I've been banging on about this stuff for a while now, but I'm so pleased when people build their own Patreon pages or enable mechanisms that let their audience support them, their crowd. It's called crowdfunding for a reason. You can't ask for money from strangers, but you can ask for money from your crowd, and your crowd is that community that you've built up, and you'll be amazed what happens when you let them support you.
We do it a bit through the podcast. We have Simon runs a coffee account, KOFI, which seems to be a way that a number of podcasts try and just help themselves along a bit. I mean, we do this for the love of it. It's not our, Simon's self-employed. He doesn't get an income from the two podcasts he does, but the once you engage with a community and you say, well, look, actually, we've got this donations page. It's not Patreon, so we're not looking for regular donors, although it's nice. But I know, Simon's got some real costs associated with hosting this. We're not doing it on a free app like Anchor. He's paying hosting costs, and the costs I think now are pretty much covered, aren't they, Simon, with that coffee donations, which is just helpful for you, isn't it? Otherwise, me and you would have to shell out, and I'm sure we would do, but it's nice that folks care enough and like what we do enough to, occasionally, throw a couple of quid our way.
That's right. And it's such a nice feeling when people do commit to it. Somebody said to me once, in the automated thank you message, I asked people if they have a moment, I'd love to hear how they found me and why they decided to become a patron, because that's valuable information for me to hone and refine things in the future. And one person said to me, I committed to you when I saw how committed you are to the project. When you posted that video, the mission fatigue video, that's when I realised how committed you are, and I realised I was one of those people that you were talking about. I've been following for years, but I haven't contributed in any way. I've just sat back and enjoyed it, and I thought, right, I need to commit to this as well. And I'm aware that Patreon isn't for everybody, so I have a page on my website called Become a Supporter, and that offers a raft of ways for people to support me. They can make a one-off donation, like you guys are doing, or you're doing through. Sorry, is it pronounced? Is it coffee? Is that how it's pronounced? Yeah. So it's a similar kind of thing. They can make a one-off donation, or they can pledge by card monthly, or they can become a patron on Patreon. So people don't like it when they're railroaded, I don't think. So it's good to offer people a choice and make them feel that they can choose on their own terms how to support a project or how to support a body of work.
So Jack, how has if I mention the dreaded C word that's been going on since the beginning of the year, how has that affected the project? When was the last time you went out and photographed a lifeboat station, and how has this period been for you, and what are your plans for getting the project restarted?
Well, yes, it's impacted hugely, and induced a bit of panic at first, as it did for many people.
Yeah.
I set off on my last mission on the 4th of March, and isn't it strange to be using language like that? Because that's not long ago, is it? The 4th of March. That's when I was driving from Newcastle down to the South Devon coast on the face of it to photograph another 12 stations along the South Devon coast, and then across to the Channel Islands, and finally surmount the most southerly lifeboat stations on the network. And when I was in the first station, which was Salcombe on the 6th of March, coronavirus is being talked about, but it wasn't that big on the agenda. In fact, I wrote a newsletter from Salcombe, and it didn't mention it. When I'm looking back at it, it didn't mention it once in my newsletter. I wasn't once thinking, oh, maybe this journey will be stopped. But then the next station was Plymouth, and that's when the language started changing. Because I was there for a couple of days, and by the second day, the coxswain was saying, do you think you'll be going to the Channel Islands still? I was saying, oh yeah, well I have to, Dave, because it's on the itinerary. The dates are all confirmed. Yeah. He said, yeah, you might want to have a think about that. The word on the street is that it's that the net is tightening now. Right. Okay. And I started to really then have a weather eye on the horizon, as a lifeboatman or a seafarer might say. And that was my 149th station. And then I got to Dart, which is the name of the lifeboat station on the river, on the River Dart, so at Dartmouth. My 150th station, and made the photographs there on the Sunday, the 15th of March. So we're already mid-March now. And it was the next day, the Monday the 16th, that Boris Johnson
made his announcement.
It was the social distancing measures, and that changed everything. So it wasn't even the lockdown then, that was just social distancing.
Yep.
And I was due to be in Brixham the next day at Tor Bay Lifeboat Station. And it became utterly clear in those moments, how can we make a crew photograph? We can't. Liaised quickly with the RNLI about it. As it happened, an RNLI representative was with me that day because we were due to have some press coverage with ITV. So a film crew was going to be coming down to film me, as they often do at work. And we just had to pull the plug there and then. And the coxswain, when he opened the door to me at the lifeboat station, he said, no, you can't come in. that's it. That was it. That was that moment. So that was that was the Tuesday, the 17th of March. So the last lifeboat station I photographed was Sunday, the 15th of March, and that was my 150th lifeboat station. And so within just a few days of that moment, I was back in Newcastle, trying to work out, as everybody else was as well, and as everybody still is, how are we going to progress with life? And the truth of it is, at the moment, is that when can we perceive that it's going to be acceptable and not frowned upon to make a crew photograph? And because I only make my new work between March and September, so basically in British summertime, because that's when the light levels, we were talking about ISO right at the start. On a good day, one of my plates, one of my handmade glass plates, is ISO 0.75.
You should have a word with Jason Lane, maybe just buy his.
Yeah, exactly. And that's if the collodion's fresh. If by the end of each trip, the ISO probably drops to about 0.5 of one ISO. So I only make new work in British summertime to guarantee a full day's work, and fitting in around the station. So September now isn't too far away. That traditionally the last month of the year that I'll be on the road. And so really then is it next year? And it looks like that more and more now, that it'll be next year. Maybe a full year will have passed before I can make new plates again. But the thing is, there's so much. It's been a gift in many ways, because my family and I have been safe and well. The time has been a gift because I've been able to just for once just rest. Mind you, my wife will tell you that I haven't rested either, even during that time, because of all the new ideas I've had.
I can't imagine you resting ever.
I know. I'm sure you're getting the idea now. And anybody who's a patron will know that I've made some short films and gone through my sound archive and been making.
You're very active on that feed, aren't you? On the Patron.
Yeah, and soundscapes, and it's been a chance to catch up with the work and really reflect on what I've done. And there's been a lot of press interest as well, not least around my stance on the social media side, and articles to write and all that kind of thing. It hasn't actually stopped, but it's been a wonderful time just to reflect on things and think about how to progress the project. So I've got plenty of new ideas up my sleeve. If I can't go on the road and make new photographs, I can, for example, extend my audio archive. I could perhaps go back to lifeboat stations and interview people that I didn't get the chance to interview first time around, to increase the audio archive, because I see that as being just as valuable. You see, that's often overlooked, but there's an audio page on my website as well that highlights the audio recordings that I make, that I also adore making just as much as the photography.
Well, the audio, that's a proper. If you can combine the audio, the stories from the old wizened-faced coxswain, that's probably a stereotype, with his Tales of the Sea. I mean, what a record that is. You're
quite right. I mean, again, on the audio page on the website, I put some previews. There's some complete podcasts on there, but if people can only hear them on Patreon, I'll at least put a preview on there to maybe persuade them to become a patron and listen, but they can hear a little bit of it. And you'll see that there are some exactly those kind of people that you mentioned, the hardened, weathered seafarers, the bearded coxswain, and you can hear some sound clips, and it fits into exactly that.
What was the famous social documentary that engaged folks all around the country in the years after World War II? I forget what it was called now. There was a movement that involved recording and photographs and audio, and it was called something.
Yes,
somebody will remind me.
Yeah, it's evading me now as well.
You know what I mean? It's got a name, and people bought into it.
Yeah. Sorry, it's left me as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so these things are so valuable.
Yeah, and I see audio recordings, making recordings as picture making as well. I see that as photography, really.
Yeah.
Photography and audio recordings, they're all picture making, because that's where the image happens, is in your brain.
Yeah. Simon, well, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Well, I've got one last question. Should we say that? And that's leading on. It's a leading on from how we got to where we are now. So you've pretty much, this year is looking almost like a write-off, or close to it. But assuming, big assumption, but assuming that next year you can go back out there and because we've found new ways to do things, and who knows, maybe a vaccine, who knows.
Yes.
How long do you think it's going to be for you to be able to finish your project?
Well, if I can keep going at the same pace, on average, I visit 30 lifeboat stations a year, and there are 88 left. Right at the start, or regularly, people say to me, "What do you mean it's an 8-year project? Surely you could do it more quickly than that." And I said, "Well, if I tell you that I visit 30 stations a year, photographing it in this way, what do you think then?" They go, "Wow, that's a lot." It's like, well, divide 238 by 30, and you'll find it's 7.9. That's how many years it is. So with 88 stations left, there's another 3 years' work left on the project. And bear in mind, I'm in my mid-40s now. I started this project when I was in my 30s. That first lifeboat station at Southwold in Suffolk, that was when I was 39. To think now that when I finished it, I could be very nearly approaching 50.
That old, eh?
Well, yeah, just not as an observation of age, but a time span.
Yeah, I know.
Say.
Okay,
that's quite a thing, isn't it? Because many people talk about projects that have taken 30 years, but or 20 years, but when you look at that a little bit more closely, what they mean is they've been dipping in and out of it for 20, 30 years, and it's taken them that long to do it. This is a full-time commitment. I'm not doing anything else. It's me committed to this project to get it done within 8 years. It was my game plan as the project progressed. And now, if I can restart next year and do it smoothly without interruption, that will then take me to 2024, which, as it happens, is the 200th anniversary of the RNLI.
Mm.
So my completion date at the moment might well be 2024, I think.
Well,
that'd be perfect, wouldn't it?
It will be a neat ending, and I also think that's a good time for us to wind things down now as well. I'm
sorry. I feel like we haven't talked much about large format photography. I'll talk about project planning and.
No, that's okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah, well, we talk about large format photography every 2 to 3 weeks. So logistics is an important part of things, and the things that go on around, and also how there's a BBC show not that long ago called "What Do Artists Do All Day."
Yes.
And it's really interesting just to see how an artist actually lives, and how they make do and make a living from it. And you've given us a very clear understanding how you do it, including with all the struggles that you've had to get to where you are now.
Absolutely.
So
people want to see your work, they can just go to the website, can't they? They can engage with, they can be a Patreon, and they can ask you, they can send you emails, they can send you messages on Patreon and get engaged with your project. So what you've done here is given some context to everything you've done, and it's been fabulous. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, it's. I think it's something that people don't talk about often enough. Perhaps I think as a photographer, if you say you're a photographer, you should be able to make a photograph, and you should be able to use the equipment. I don't even think about that side of it really. People are kind of lured towards my lovely 1905 camera, but I think they're kind of disappointed sometimes when I'm not in love with my camera. It's made every single glass plate, that one camera, that one lens. But the gift, the true product, are the stories to tell, and the light to shine on amazing people. Yeah, and yes, hopefully this has therefore given some context, some of the unspoken context into what goes into that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And this is also a good time for me to say thank you to those people that have donated to us on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com, and we're pretty much almost impossible to find. So
you've done really well if you've managed to give us money and find the site.
So there are three people that have actually managed to do that, and they are Mike Rattle, who has not left a
Hello,
message. But thank you, Mike. And then there's Steve Williamson, who has left us a message, and he says, been listening since I dove into large format. You and your guests have been my guide. Thanks. And then I think, thanks. Thanks. I think I should never read this out, but there you go. I'm hopeless at reading aloud. As you said, I can't find you via the coffee search feature. Yeah, so but he did it by googling large format photography and then coffee, and we turned up that way. So Google is our friend in this case. I don't. Are we okay with Google, by the way, or is Google evil as well?
I think choose your battlegrounds. I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, Christopher J. May. Thank you very much, Christopher. So that's pretty much it. I was just thinking about some of the things you also said earlier, because I didn't really want to interrupt the flow, but there was a bit there about when people say negative things and how it hurts you, and we have the same thing when people criticise our theme music. Not that we wrote it, but it's very dear to us, and we think it's wonderful. So please don't criticise it, everybody. And so let's say thank you to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, who provides our theme music, which is called Two Finger Johnny. Let's as far as people following you, and rather not so much following you, finding your work. We've mentioned it a few times, and let's mention it again. Jack, where are the places that people can find what you do?
Well, the hub of the project is lifeboatstationproject.com. But my social media platform of choice is Twitter, where I'm Project Lifeboat. But you'll find links to that on the website. And the ways that I'm telling the story of the project these days and showing the work are Twitter, my newsletter, the website, and Patreon. Those are the four methods. Those are the four honed methods that I'm using.
Brilliant. And we didn't prime you on this, but have you got any shout outs you might want to say hello to anybody that might be listening?
Thank you. A heartfelt thank you to everybody who has supported my project in some way, shape or form, whether it's financially, with accommodation, through being married to me.
You haven't got one in every port, have you?
No.
That's why you go around the lifeboats.
No. Yeah, so you were just wrapping it up, weren't you?
I was. We're going down a rabbit hole there, aren't we?
But no, thank you to everyone who's supported my work. As we speaking now, I have over 300 patrons through Patreon, and that's just extraordinary. And they have enabled me to carry on. And people who buy prints and the other things available through the shop, that's why I can carry on. So thank you to everyone who is rooting for me, particularly through lockdown and the challenges ahead.
Postcards,
mugs,
t-shirts, hoodies.
Yeah, very famous With Courage keyring.
Yes. Father's Day.
Yes. Hopefully the Father's Day info has been taken off, has it?
I don't know. I remember seeing you posting about it.
Oh, yeah. I see. Yes, right. Okay. I thought I made another mistake there. Yeah. So, yes, thank you to everyone who who's made it all possible and has basically rooted for me and stuck by me.
We're not going to do the emails this week because we've got a couple of them. One of which is really in depth, so we need to put some thought into that one. How we actually
we didn't understand it. That's the thing. So you've got to get somebody on who can answer it.
Yeah, that is the other way of interpreting what I've just said there. So Morgan, we will get round to that email when there's somebody clever on the show, and Jack probably could have answered it, but we're gonna let him off on that one just in case.
You don't want to try it?
No.
Okay.
No. We'll leave that one there. It could take us a while to get through that one.
Can I say one more shout out as well?
Yeah.
To the lifeboat volunteers themselves, because of course I couldn't make this work without their cooperation and patience. So they're amazing people. Nearly 5,000 of them around the coast. And if you have a local lifeboat station, which you're likely to, go to it and put some money in the tin because they need it.
Yeah. Or feel free to share the heck out of the podcast when it gets put up there on Friday, probably, of this week.
Yeah, it'll go on Friday.
So if you've got some
Fantastic.
RNLI sort of contacts, or
Of course, yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It'll be out there.
add it to your list of, because now you've been on the the large format photography podcast. Your fame and fortune will go through the roof. We've launched.
I can't wait. I'm excited already.
Yeah.
We've launched so many people on their careers, like Clyde Butcher.
Yes. Alice Tomlinson, she's done well since being with us as well.
Yeah, she has.
Alice.
Yeah.
Alice has become a friend over lockdown as well. Yeah. I'm in a group with her.
Yeah, we did a lovely talk with her, didn't we? Towards the end of last year, was it? I can't exactly remember now.
It was a bit earlier, but yeah, that was an excellent one.
Yeah. Stunning work, absolutely sublime work.
Yeah.
Fantastic book.
So, Andrew, have you got any shout-outs this week?
No, I must prepare. We've got to 31 shows, and I don't think I've managed one shout-out yet. So,
okay.
But keep asking. It's very nice of you.
All right. Well, other than listening to us every 2, maybe 3 weeks or so,
3 weeks. Yeah.
How can people follow the work that you do?
Well, I'm not sure I dare mention it now, to be honest. But probably I'm most engaged on Twitter. It's the one social media platform that's really had a big impact on me, I think. So I'm Warboys Snapper on there, and hanging out in our Facebook group, the Large Format Photography Facebook group. That's the place I like to engage, because a lot of the folks that we have on the show end up in the Facebook group, and it's very friendly and very interactive. And some real friends and some real friendships seem to be burgeoning and developing there.
And if anybody wants to write into the show, what's the best way of doing that?
Oh, you bugger. The Large Format Photography Podcast at gmail.com.
That's it. Excellent. And
if I don't think about it too quickly and just blurt it out, I get it right.
That's right. I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also the name of my website, except you've got to put .uk on the end of that. So if you do want to buy any lens caps, and I'm actually going to be starting to make slip-on lens caps as well for just about any size. But there's a few things I need to iron out on that one. But I know what kind of velvet I'm going to use anyway, so I'm making progress.
It's sounding very kinky already, velvet and slip-on caps.
That's just how your mind works, but there you go. What else has completely thrown me? I think, let's just go. I've already said thank you to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for our music. So that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed this 3 weeks show, and it'd be great if you can come back again next time. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.